You're listening to the Bulldog Hour, getting you inside the Wilson football program with weekly game previews, recaps, highlights, and interviews. Now, here are your hosts, Joe Mays and Justin Raffoff.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the 7th episode of the Bulldog Hour's 5th season. I'm one of your hosts, Joe Mays, and sitting next to me, my co-host, Justin Raffoff.
Yeah, it's good to be here, and it's crazy we've reached that point of the year.
Yeah, here we are. It's an important episode because we're actually previewing a game.
Yeah.
And it's August 18th. We're more than halfway through the month of August.
It hit me when I started realizing that next Friday's weather was appearing in the weather app. So a few days ago, starting to realize, I was looking at what's the weather going to be like on Friday. So
yeah, because it's a big deal. We don't want it to be wet or too hot. We want it to be a nice, nice crisp late summer evening.
Next Friday was high of 80, low of 57.
Okay, I'll take it.
Yeah.
that sounds good to me.
That'd be great.
I saw one of Wilson's former coaches and a former player as well, Matt Vitodian, sent out a picture of somewhere in Berks County and around this area. I don't know if it was Y Missing, Sinking Spring, where it was, but he showed a bunch of leaves on the ground and wanted to know, is it August or October? And it's either way, it's a good time of the year because no matter what, there's Wilson football in all of those months. And we have the first regular season game coming up on Friday, August 23rd. It's at Gurski Stadium against Central Dauphin. We'll get into the Rams preview in a few minutes, but we're going to focus most of our time on the scrimmage and talk about a few other things that happened this week. But as usual, we have just, our normal housekeeping stuff that we want to go through. Make sure that we hit everything and get information out for everyone to know. We do want to thank our show sponsors, again, May's Sandwich Shop and our one anonymous donor this year for this season of the Bulldog Hour. And there are a variety of ways you can support us besides sponsorship and advertising and the in-kind donations. We do appreciate if you visit bulldoghour.com, our website. You can not only find stuff about the show there, but a variety of stats and history on the Wilson football program. And I always have as many of the up-to-date announcements that the football program wants me to put out. Throughout the spring, it was all about the golf tournament. And then we had stuff about the 7-on-7. And finally, right now, you can still get links to the flag football information for the very young kids. The ones that are entering kindergarten and first grade are eligible for the flag football program. And get that stuff in now because flag football starts, I believe, after the third game, after the Springford game. I think the Saturday after the Springford game is the first flag football session on the Wilson High School campus. And then finally, of course, like always, Justin's favorite, spreading the word.
Yeah, like and share.
And continue to do so. There's a lot of hits on the Wilson Bulldogs football page on Facebook this last week. There was a lot going on, so I appreciate all the likes and shares on there.
Yeah, I think this is 3 shows in a week for us.
Yeah, I did.
And because we're doing it in the afternoon today, right? It's
right. I said that
it's even
it's exactly. It's truly 3 shows in less than a week. So if you wanted Wilson football and you wanted Bulldog Hour talking about Wilson football, this was the best week you've ever had. So our next live show will be just over a week from now, just a few hours past a week from now, on our normal time, which is 8:30 on Sunday evenings. Sunday, August 25th, we will be recapping the game against Central Dauphin and previewing the Governor Mifflin game.
Yeah, it's crazy. And then, I know it's still a weird transition for lots of people. I know some people kept asking me, multiple people kept asking, all right, well, when's the first game? And I kept saying, the 23rd. And I think they just thought I was wrong. And I'm like,
right?
No, it's the 23rd. And everybody's like, when did that happen? I was like, this is not
Forever.
The first year of it. Right, stop it.
Yeah.
But
So I mentioned this week there was a lot going on. Well, the beginning of the week was the start of camp.
Yeah.
3-a-day camp got kicked off 6:30 Monday morning. Not just the football team, but almost every sports team that gets started was there doing a variety of work around the high school and the district campuses. And that continued throughout the week. Then Friday was picture day, so we got to see everyone in their uniforms, including the brand new home red uniforms that the team will be wearing this year. I think they look really nice. Matt Bender did a great job getting those created and here on time and ready to go. And you can see I took a picture of the seniors at the Gurski Stadium statue. That was a lot of fun. It's a big senior group. I think there's 26, at least 26 seniors on this team. So it's a very senior heavy roster, which is it's a good thing to have when you have the players that have gone through it for this many years and they've been in it. It's a good sign. And we heard them say when we talked to the players a few weeks ago that they're leading by example and leading as a group. They're not individualizing anything, and that's excellent.
Yeah, and a number of the things that we talk about every year, but you can look at the picture and you just see it with some of these guys that, you have a really good mix of, there's a lot of experience there. There's a good number of these guys have played a bunch over the last few years, which is great. But there's also some of those guys who have had their moments here and there, but have kind of put their time in, and now they're seniors, and the door is now open, and it's their opportunity. So it's exciting to see, see them get their chance to shine here, and hopefully they can step up.
Yeah, it was a great session with VSN Photography. They did a great job with all the pictures. And here's my picture from earlier in the week. The first day of practice, the sunrise over the campus. It was a great morning for football. So, all right. I think we covered everything there. I don't know that there was anything else. Yeah, that's right. I did want to showcase these pictures, so let's pull them up. At the end of the week, right after picture day, I went back through my archives or people that have provided me with information, and I tried to grab all of the senior players who have had family play at Wilson, father, grandfather, whatever it may be. And I believe we ended up with 7. I went into the day thinking 5, and I found a 6, and then I was notified of a 7th. The first one here, Danner family. I didn't realize that Nick was in the district this year as a senior, and his dad Josh played on the 92, 93, like in that area, class of 94. So Nick and Josh Danner, and then we have, if I can change the picture, then we have the Gibble family. Obviously Brett's a coach now, kicking coach. He was also a kicker in the late 80s, and now his son Brady and Alex are playing for the Bulldogs. Also the Williams family, Nick this year and his dad Lee. Freeman family, Tyler and Rick. Oh, that one. There we go. Keller family, Nate and his grandfather, Michael. That was a cool one. It's kind of amazing how much of a family resemblance they have there, over 60 years apart. And I talked to Nate about this. He said that when he said when his family saw it, they just couldn't, it was so great. And the best part is this wasn't I didn't show Nate the picture. Right. I was just Nate, I need you to stand here, and he was like, okay. I was like, hold this helmet, and he just gave me a look, and that's the look. And when I pulled it up, I was just like, that is amazing. Yeah. That is absolutely amazing. And Venino, Adam, his dad Kevin, playing on those great teams in the early 80s, some of Gurski's best. And the Wildman family, Johnny and his father Kurt. So, and then we're back to the group of seniors. So that was fun on Friday, going to picture day, and then putting the tradition, family legacy collection together was a lot of fun. So, but again, all this stuff is on the Facebook page at Wilson Bulldogs Football. Find it on there, posting stuff throughout the season and off season, but you definitely want to like that page and follow us on there. So without wasting any more time talking about these kind of things, let's move on and talk about the main event, which is the Parkland scrimmage. If I can just pull up the tape here and get going talking about that. And we're just going to kind of let this play and talk about it as it goes on, not necessarily highlighting any plays right away. We're just going to play it as is, and Justin and I will give our take on how the team looked. So the JVs went up first. There's no film on the JVs, I don't believe, but they were up first at 9:30. They played for about 45 minutes. Then the varsity got started around 10:30. It was a nice, hour plus of Wilson versus Parkland, which has been going on now for, I think, almost possibly uninterrupted for over 30 years, maybe longer. As I talked to it with Brett Gibble, saying, I remember in the early 2000s us playing with Parkland in the scrimmage, and Brett was like, I think we played Parkland in the scrimmage in the late 80s. So Wilson Parkland has kind of been a scrimmage matchup for decades now, and it's it's a great matchup for both teams just because they're both very established programs, a lot of tradition, and really kind of work with the reload, not rebuild. There's always a new wave coming through, so it's always a great barometer. And now that it's the only scrimmage, it makes it even more important to figure out where you're at. Now, this Parkland team is one of the favorites in their league, and also to win District 11. So they on paper, and the expectations from the media in the Allentown area is that this Parkland team is very good.
Well, and I honestly forgot until yesterday when I was looking at some other stuff online after the scrimmage. I saw that I forgot that Parkland has some of they have some D1 talent on that roster, which is not a surprise. I mean, I feel like they do often. That's not rare, but I just wasn't thinking of it yesterday morning when we were there at the scrimmage.
Their left tackle was 6'3", 300. Nick Dawkins going to Penn State, and if that name sounds familiar, it's because he's the son of Daryl Dawkins,
right?
So. We were joking to some of the coaches about how they were probably calling him Tiny in the family because he's probably the smallest member of the Dawkins family. But no, obviously very strong. They had a lot of big guys on the line, including Nick, but not limited to just him. They also had a bruising running back or two that would not go down.
Yeah.
I mean, he was, if he's the same guy that we faced off against 4 years ago at West, we're very familiar with his style of play and just going through the system, getting bigger and stronger. He was a bull. It
was interesting, especially early on, because he really, early on, I mean, it took a little bit to get up to speed, a little bit, I think. And, it's just different. And he was running intensely. Let's put it that way.
For sure.
But I was really pleased at how after early on that it didn't look exactly the same. Like early on he was running, you're like, okay.
I'm gonna see if I can jump ahead maybe to the game situation rather than the 10 and 10.
It was pretty interesting then about how that just kind of worked itself out.
So we should be getting closer now to the game situation here. So let's take a look at this a little bit more, because the team did have a little bit of a rough start. I mean, it wasn't bad. Like, I wasn't like, oh boy, I wasn't getting anxious or nervous about things, because there were some ups and downs. But more importantly, the coaches were mixing a lot of people in. They didn't necessarily play who they believe are going to start immediately. They had some backups, thrown to the fire during the 10 versus 10 session, and they went through that, I think, for a grand total of 60 plays, 30 offense, 30 defense. Took a little break, got reorganized, sent the starters out, and I honestly think they shocked Parkland a little bit when it got to game situation.
Yeah, I was, it was interesting. Kind of seeing, we talked about it a little bit afterwards, but then, we had to kind of get going. But I thought it was interesting to see how things changed, even just after the first couple series or so, because early on, everybody is kind of getting used to playing someone other than against them, their own defense and stuff like that. But I was pleased when, Wilson kind of hit their stride, and definitely, I think, had some moments where they looked pretty good.
Yeah, we got to see a variety of attempts and offensive styles. We saw your standard runs, we saw your option runs, we saw short passes, we saw some deep passes. We got we got the defense to move a few times, which I thought was great. It showed discipline from our players, and a snap count and something that you can just use to your advantage. Hey, picking up 5 yards, people may scoff at it, But
Well, and one of the key things then too is you also, if you can create just a moment, like a moment of hesitation on the defender, to like not
give
get off
your
the
guy
ball
an extra
quite
step.
as quick, just even one time, like that is huge then, So yeah, I kind of think like basketball, when you have a guy that can block lots of shots, it's not just the shots that he blocks, it's also the ones that he alters or that people don't take now because of that. And if you can get somebody to hesitate for a second or something like that, then it changes everything.
Right.
So,
And I'm gonna walk that
yeah, I
last
know the
one
coaches
back.
are still on the field here, so I know this isn't.
Yeah,
the
this
live
was
one, but-
let's see here. So this play stood out. We did see Caleb Brown start at quarterback for both 10-on-10s and the game situation, and this was a huge play that he was able to do with his athleticism and his feet. I know the coaches were telling him to get out of bounds, don't take the hit, but he just showed his elusiveness there and his ability to extend the play because he was able to sense the collapsing pocket and the defender closing in on him, and he spun out of it, made a guy miss, and instead of losing 7 to 10 yards, he picked up 25-30 yards on a broken play.
Yeah, and that's something that can be beneficial. Obviously, you hope you don't need too much of it, but then you also have the moments where you're going to need that.
Right. And there were some, for as many as good things as there were in the game, there were miscues as well.
Still
and
plenty of things to work on.
And Coach Dom said as much at the end. He gathered around. I mean, he congratulated them, said it was very successful. It was a good scrimmage. There was good things, but there were bad things. But he said everything can be corrected. There isn't a huge deficiency that they're going to be trying to avoid.
And that's one of the things I think that stood out to me, and I think I mentioned that to you right after the game was, yes, not the game, the scrimmage, but yeah, there were lots of things that we can work on, but at the same time, the things that I felt like, oh man, we really need to kind of look at this or work on this, are all areas that I don't want to say it's a quick fix, but things that can be addressed in the normal progression of things. It's not like it left yesterday and be like, oh man, this is an area where we're in trouble, or this is an area where I don't know what we're going to do, or there's none of that, which is a positive thing, especially when you're going against a team like Parkland, like we mentioned, that in theory is going to be able to expose those things if they exist on your team. You know what I mean? Like, you have a D1 lineman out there, if he's just manhandling and you can't even get a playoff, because he's just collapsing, or he's collapsing at one side of your line every time.
Right.
That's a problem, because I don't know what you're going to do about that. Now, fortunately, you're not going up against D1 linemen every week, but in Section 1 and in our non-conference, we're going up against a number of guys that are going to be playing in college. And so it's just, I was really pleased with that in that regard.
Right, for sure. Now, what do you think was the biggest positive, maybe positional group that you thought really shone brightly yesterday?
And this would show this doesn't, I think, I'm fumbling over my words. Great. I think the running back position looked really good, strong yesterday. And like in our interviews with players and coaches, they kind of mentioned there are some guys, some of the names like Avanti is there, and AJ, who played some last year at running back. I think specifically to the Hempfield game at the Reading Fighting Stadium, when AJ was just running over guys. Man, he was running like a man possessed in that game. But you also saw guys like Jaden Jones got some carries yesterday, looked good. Mason Leonard got some touches yesterday and looked good. That's one area that stuck out to me. Another, and this will seem simple, but the way Jack Wagner was booting the ball through the uprights,
isn't that awesome?
You looked at Parkland. Parkland had 3 guys out there. Now Wilson had 2, because I think Is Josh Shutter was out there?
No, Jordan. No, no. I don't believe Jordan was there. They don't want to start his
he's a
clock. He's a freshman. They talked about pulling him up.
There was
as an
someone
option.
else. I just didn't.
It was Welker.
Oh, okay. I saw someone else was out there and.
Are you trying to wreck the place?
Every week, man. And kick the extra point, I think. But I think Jack just did the field goals when they moved around from side to side.
Jack made everything.
Right, and he was able to do it. And you saw Parkland was running 3 guys out there, almost like we don't know who's going to kick for us yet. Now I don't know that that's their situation at all, but like
Wilson knows
having a spot like that, kind of having a comfort zone there is huge when you're talking about. Is that going to matter in every game? Hopefully not. But will it matter in some? Almost definitely.
Right.
So it kind of gets overlooked in the scrimmage because they don't really do it, and then at the end they just kind of line up as people are.
Well, it wasn't a
up
full rush.
Like
the guys were just taking a couple steps, but with a little bit more pressure than just you practicing yourself with your coach or whatever.
Able to line up.
You're able. There was game environment. There was all this stuff going on. So it was a lot to like. And we'll talk about Jack a little later. We'll get to his video. But now we're in game situation. And if you're watching along here with us, this is game situation now. You're playing 4 downs. There are refs on the field. You're playing with a time clock, which we heard Coach Dom say last week is different because it's now 40 seconds basically continuing to run.
And I think I noticed it with how quick, at least the way Wilson runs, the quarterback pretty much runs the play and goes over to the coach, gets it and everything. But how quick, I pointed this out when I was in the booth. The plays where you notice it the most are the long incomplete passes. Because there were a couple times, and almost every time, both sides, that clock was getting low after a long incomplete pass. So because that clock starts so soon, it's going to be something that's interesting, something to work on. I'm sure the officials actually like the practice of that too, because it's new for them too, right?
I think one of the things you'll see, and I believe I might have jumped too far. I don't think I had the series where the offense had the big run by Avanti for the touchdown. So we'll go back and try to see that, but. The Wilson defense caused 2 fumbles, I think, on the Parkland's first 2 series.
Yeah.
Maybe you could say that it was more of a Parkland issue. It wasn't forced fumbles, but it still counts.
Right.
And the Wilson defense really held Parkland in check when the starters, those guys were out there. The defense really looked good against Parkland.
Yeah, and that was good, and that's kind of what I was alluding to earlier, where. The first series of the 10 plays, 10 plays.
The 10 and 10,
the
10
running
and
back,
turns.
Like he was moving the ball, and they've got talent a lot of different places. And they've got size. Look at the wide receiver at the top of the screen.
Yeah,
I saw him when they were warming up. So they've got talent, and it's not like they didn't get first downs or anything, but that's going to be expected. But the defense, I thought they looked good, and I thought they looked like they improved and kind of got up to speed a little bit during the scrimmage, which was huge because, I think that's one of the things, one of the difficulties is ramping up from all that summer work and all this hitting. I know they're hitting and all that stuff, in camp and all of those things, but to go live against someone else when you don't know the play that's coming or don't know the personnel quite as well, even with, because you're not going to do film study game prep
right. No, you weren't
scrimmage,
for this,
right?
No.
So to just kind of go out there and make plays is huge.
Yeah. So I can't recall in 10 and 10s. I don't remember I think Parkland scored once in 10 on 10s.
I think they did.
Wilson
Maybe
score?
I thought they scored on the third one. I think.
Yeah, because we stopped them the first time.
Right.
They didn't score within the 10 plays.
Right.
I think Wilson scored. Was that when Jaden scored? It was during 10 on 10s,
remember.
I think. Yeah, I'm getting confused, but I think 10 on 10s was pretty even, at least in terms of
there were
scoring.
So many plays.
But yeah, you do so many plays. There's 30 on each side of the ball for each team. So there's a lot going on. But, it seemed for the most part, if you had to grade, you would say Parkland had better. Oh, no,
run.
There's the run. So good. We didn't miss it.
But I feel like on our first series, Avanti, ran 10 yards, was getting tied up and then leveled somebody. To have a running back who can run over a guy but also run past everybody, that's huge. But like I said, he looked good yesterday, but I thought the depth that we heard about in some of our interviews really kind of was able to show there.
Yeah, we saw multiple guys rotate in through the secondary, but I think someone that I was most impressed with because he got to play a lot on both sides of the ball, both with the starters and the reserves, was junior Matt Schrufer.
Yeah,
he was all over the place. He got a little bit of extra time because Ethan Capitano wasn't available yesterday, so he got to see some time at defensive end, and he looked really good against a really strong Parkland front. He also got to fill in offensive tackle throughout the day, so he was a bright spot. And we actually heard, I believe it was, there's the second fumble. Mm-hmm. Actually, that might have been a third fumble because Wilson already, I think, recovered 2, and there was another miscue by Parkland, but. I believe it was Coach Wolber who mentioned Matt Schrufer as being someone that they were excited about, and he definitely looked the part against Parkland. And if you can do it against Parkland, that's a good sign for the first 4 weeks of the season because you're talking about teams that are generally right up there with them.
They would fit right in. Like if you sub them in or out with any of the top four, but like those first four. When I look at the schedule, they tend to be at the top. Those first 4 games, those non-league games, that they would fit right in there among the top of those teams, So, Parkland's a team that's always playing well into November usually, and they usually have aspirations to be playing longer than that. And so I think that's part of what you mentioned earlier. That's why this is a perfect kind of setup for this scrimmage. It really helps both teams. Both teams know what they're going to get. It's a little different than some of the things they may see, and honestly, this is a small thing, especially between how much things can change between middle of August and late November, early December. But these teams wouldn't play each other until the state championship.
Right, yeah, making the joke like, hey, if you see Parkland again, you had a pretty good year.
Right, like
you're playing in the state title game.
But like you don't want to go and necessarily show your hand to the teams you're going to be playing in your league or anything like that. Like that doesn't really make sense for a lot of teams unless you're kind of desperate there. But so yeah,
you know what? The press box cameraman leaves a lot to be desired sometimes.
Yeah, I think he's probably shaking the rust off too. Give him a break.
He's got to get back in the swing of things too, huh?
Yeah.
So I think we're now in the second quarter, and now both teams started to are getting ready to put in some of their backups or second team guys, rotate them into game situations to get them up to speed. So the Wilson end wasn't as crisp as the first quarter was, but that's to be expected. Yeah. But it was a very good scrimmage, I think. And, very briefly talking to the coaches in passing, I think they were very happy. I already mentioned what Coach Dom said at the end. So I think for the first time in a few years, they were very pleased coming out of training camp and this first scrimmage. They think I think they believe that they're ready to go. And, there's always things to clean up and get better at and make changes. And you're going to finally get that game plan in place now for Central Dauphin.
Right.
But, I think everyone should be happy with the way things went yesterday.
Yeah. I feel like we've kind of hit on it now, but there was lots of positives, plenty of things to work on, but that's to be expected anytime, especially in the preseason scrimmage. You hope that, obviously we have a game on Friday. So you hope that when we're looking at the film from next Friday's game, there's still going to be some things we need to shore up, but you hope that some of the things that we saw happen in the scrimmage that we've corrected those and then we have those in place ready to go. And if we do that, and then you do that for the next week and do that for the next week, that's when we've talked about this over and over again. That's when it comes October and you're really hitting your stride, and that's great. And that's all fine and everything, but those first 4 don't really allow for you to just go out there and show up. And then honestly, the beginning of the league schedule isn't a joke.
I mean, because we anticipate Central Dauphin being a bear. Right. Same thing with Manheim Central. We're certainly not overlooking Governor Mifflin or Springford. No, and then you got 1 week in between, and then it's Manheim Township, which is like the game of the week of the year, right there for that one. I know that large amount of Wilson players went to Manheim
Yeah.
on Saturday evening and last night because Manheim Township and Manheim Central played each other.
Yeah.
And, we'll see both of those in a 3-week period. We'll play both of those teams. Thankfully, both at Gurski, which
This
is
time.
great. Yeah, after last year.
We won't have to eat pizza in a dark parking lot. Right?
That's right. Yeah, that's right. They turned the lights out on us.
They were so mad.
Yeah, so
everybody but the owner was mad that we.
That's true. Yeah, I didn't hear from any of the players or coaches or anything. Just from other people that were in Manheim for that. They said Manheim Township looked very good. And Manheim Central struggled a little. Now, is that because Manheim Township is very good, or is this is this going to be a year where Manheim Central takes a step back?
That
it's
play
hard
right
to say.
Was also a big one. Sorry,
when Eli came across and dislodged the ball.
Yeah, but also I saw that was an example of it that kind of really on clear display. But I noticed a lot of our guys in the secondary on a number of plays didn't panic when it got, when the ball was coming their way, and made some plays and made some hits. Now, they had some guys make some great catches yesterday too, so you're going to have that though. And if they make a great catch, sometimes that's all you can really do.
Right.
A great throw, great catch, you know what? But we had some guys make some great plays back there too. So,
yep, we did for sure.
Right there, timing was perfect.
I'm going to jump ahead and let's see if they recorded. Did you record the kicking? I
recorded everything to the end. Yep.
Let's
they kicked first.
Yeah, so let's think that's
them kicking.
It's still them kicking. Oh, there's more than 200 plays. Not used to that.
Well, we did do all the JV ones.
Okay, then we started watching the JV games. That's okay. That's cool. Let's go. This should probably be close. Yeah, this is us now. So let's take a look at some of the kicks. That is definitely Wagner there. So
yeah.
So Jack Wagner is definitely a great weapon to have. He's only a junior. You can get all your jokes out of the way about a lineman being a kicker. He's proven it time and time again. He was thrown into the fire last year. They tried to have a kicking camp before last season because they weren't sure if he was going to be able to do it. He ended up kicking, I think, 7 field goals on the year, including a 42-yarder at McCaskey. He tells me now,
not ideal conditions.
Yeah, right. You're right. And he says now, because I asked him, I was like, "What's your range now?" And he's like, "Ideal conditions, I can hit 55." So now, obviously, game situations not ideal conditions, depending on the weather and your nerves. But we'll see what he's able to do. But yeah, there's Schwelker right there kicking.
Yeah.
So he's the reserve. He's the guy that is there in case Jack is not able to go. But Wagner bounced around the field and he nailed every field goal that they threw at him.
Right.
So, and again, he's only a junior. He's gone to a bunch of kicking camps. He's working with Coach Gibble, and he has improved his technique and his accuracy from a year ago.
It was, he was on point here at the end, and that was great. That's exactly what you want to see. So, can't really ask for a whole lot more than that.
No.
I think it might be the last one or the second to last one.
I mean, he's clearing the post.
Or maybe it was extra point. I don't know. When they changed holders, somebody made a great grab. On the
grab.
It might be the very last one. I'm not.
Do you know who the holder was? I thought it was Caleb. Is it not Caleb? I know this is Gannon, actually. This is Gannon holding right now. I believe that's Gannon. No, that's Troy.
Yeah, here.
This might be Gannon. Yeah, that's Gannon.
Got it down. Yep. And I know, that was off schedule there, and it was huge because when they looked at it, that's the kind of play where sometimes it doesn't go exactly as planned in the game, but to be able to get it, put it down, Jack still got the kickoff, and it was still good.
That's huge. That's huge.
That's huge.
Yeah, it was great. So good special teams. They didn't do any returns. All the punts were fair caught on purpose. They don't want anyone getting hurt there. And that's another thing that came out of yesterday. There were no significant long-term injuries. That there were bumps and bruises. Some people got hit a little hard, but I don't think there's anyone that's going to miss any time as a result of the scrimmage. Now, there's a few kids banged up from camp and whatnot, but I don't think any Wilson players are going to miss the game Friday night against Central Dauphin. So, and that's different from the last 2 years as well.
Yes,
but also obviously a very, very good thing for the Wilson football team. So that's the recap, and that's the intro. Last thing we want to cover then is the Central Dauphin team, the Rams. Take a look at them as we get ready to welcome them to Gurski Stadium to kick off the 2019 season. So I think everyone's familiar for the most part with Central Dauphin. It's a team that, has a long history with Wilson. They're being not a non-Berks, non-LL team. They're a squad that Wilson has seen fairly often, and usually the stakes are very high when Wilson plays them. This series kicked off in 2014 as one of the first 3 games on the schedule. For a while, it was game 3. Now with week 0.
I think it's funny because if you look, there have been a lot of these games, especially with this being the week 0, week 1 game now, that for the teams, it's either their first game or at least for one of them, it was their last for a lot of the games because they've met up so many times in the postseason.
So I actually think this might be, I want to say this could be the 11th meeting between the programs, and with the majority of them happening in the last 5 years. Yeah. Any other time Wilson and Central Dauphin played, it was always in the playoffs. And actually, I have an entire page dedicated to this. So on BulldogHour.com. Maybe it's the 13th meeting. Yeah, imagine if someone had gone through and grabbed all of the news articles from each time that this happened. So this is number 11. It's the 6th regular season matchup in the series history, and again, it's going to be played at Gurski this Friday, the 23rd. Wilson has not won against Central Dauphin since the 6th game in the series, and that was a district championship game that was played at Hershey Park. Wilson won that one 21-10, and it was the 3rd time the teams met in the district championship game, and it's the first time Wilson beat Central Dauphin in the district championship game. And unfortunately, I have a very personal knowledge to that fact. So
you're aware, huh?
I am very much aware of that. But yeah, Wilson hasn't beaten Central Dauphin since November 29th, 2014. And last year's victory was, I believe, the first team ever to beat Wilson 4 years in a row when Central Dauphin beat Wilson last year 23-7. The games are always hard fought, usually very close. I think the most lopsided one was back in 1997 in a district semifinal. Central Dauphin beat Wilson 44-0. But all the other games, you're talking usually a touchdown-ish or less, at least into the final moments. And usually the winning team might pull away. But they're usually very hotly contested. So this is always a fun matchup. And I don't see why this year would be any different. Of course, the Central Dauphin head coach is Glenn McNamee. He's been there for a long time now. And the Central Dauphin lost in the district championship game last year to Harrisburg.
Who went on to play for the state championship.
Yep, they would upset Coatesville the next week and then would fall in the state championship game. So, but what do they have coming
honestly,
back?
Hung in there in the state championship
absolutely.
Game a lot longer than anyone was giving them credit
Absolutely. They did not expect... first, they didn't expect Harrisburg to beat Coatesville, and then they didn't expect Harrisburg to hang in as long as they did. So Central Dauphin was hit a little bit by graduation. They lost some key guys are gone now to graduation. Among them, the big one was Adam Burkhart. He was kind of the heart and soul of the Central Dauphin team last year, running back, linebacker. He's off playing in college. He contributed, over 100 yards a game for their offense and was a leader on that defense as well. But who do they have coming back? Well, they also lost their quarterback. Their quarterback from a year ago is gone. Don't have a lot of returning options there. It was Noah Hoffman. He threw for over 1,200 yards, and he ran that running offense very well. Yeah. And added an element to the passing game that Central Dauphin doesn't always have. So where are they going to go? It's a great question. I'm not sure who it is that's going to step up and be their go-to guy. They have a couple options, I guess, kind of like Wilson had going into the scrimmage. We'll find out Friday evening. Again, I talked about Burkhart and Hoffman moving on. Their third leading rusher also gone, but they do return a few underclassmen to fill in. The biggest name there from a year ago, Malachi Bowman, a receiver, but they do run a lot of sweeps. And you could also expect to see Tim Smith and Daniel Ficca possibly get some carries or receptions for them. But someone who I didn't even get to mention yet, the biggest name out there returning for them is their receiver cornerback, Nick Chimenti. He is he's their guy this year. If you want to be able to eyeball someone on the field Friday night, number 3, Chimenti, he's the guy that you're going to want to pay attention to.
Yeah, it's one of those where, we talked about they did lose, they lost plenty, but I am certain that they will have plenty of talent to run out there. Yeah, not that you're suggesting otherwise. It just, they did lose some of their guys that you're probably more accustomed to hearing, but they are. It's kind of one of those things where you have a good idea of what to expect when you go out there on Friday night. They're going to line up, and they're not going to be a team that's going to shy away from a physical battle. Like Central Dauphin does not do that, So they always have the guys to do it. They're going to line up. It's one of those situations where you have a pretty good idea of exactly what they're going to do, and they're just going to do it anyway. And they're going to try and do it better, and not make mistakes. And if you make mistakes, they're going to capitalize. I remember before last year's game, I was talking with someone, and they said the winner of this game is going to be the one that can make sustained drives without mistakes that hurt their offense, right? Because the defenses were good enough that it was going to be a problem for either offense, right, if they make turnovers or have penalties. And in the first half, both teams were a little sloppy. In the second half, they got the ball. They got it rolling a little quicker than we were able to last year. And then that forced us to try and have to take some chances. You know how that goes. So like when that happens. But it's just one of those where I think when we look ahead, it's still going to be kind of that same thing. Like knowing like the schemes they generally run, knowing how their strength and their physicality and all that stuff. Are you able to eliminate those mistakes and be able to kind of do what you want? You know what I mean? Like if they're going to dictate the game, the style of game or type of game or anything like that, I'm not saying that Wilson can't be just as physical or just as strong, or
right?
Because I certainly think we can. It's just who's going to kind of be the aggressor. Right. It'll be interesting to see.
They also are returning Cameron Sassani. He's their leading sack man from a year ago. Elijah Vargas is back. Tyrese Smith is back. Excuse me, not Tyrese Smith. That's Timmy Smith. And Tyrese Fuller. My bad. So they're a high school football program in Pennsylvania. Yeah. They're as dedicated to the craft as the best teams that we talk about all the time. This is a huge matchup. It's one of the marquee matchups across the state for the first game of the season. And, it's a reason a few years ago is, the highlighted game in, rivalry week. It was Wilson Central Dauphin in week 3 a couple years back. So there's it's always going to be a battle with Central Dauphin. And with Wilson not having been on the right side of it for nearly 5 years. Hopefully,
love to switch that back around.
Right. Hopefully, this team is ready to go, and Central Dauphin wants to run the ball. Last year, we read all about how strong and physical the line, especially the offensive line, was going to be, and most of the team came out and laid an egg against Central Dauphin. So now we're a year later, most of those guys are back. There wasn't a lot of graduation at Wilson, and those guys that are going to be the focal point of the offensive defensive line, they're back. They're a year older, you're bigger, a year stronger. Unfortunately for Wilson, Central Dauphin returns most of their line. The guys that they're replacing are your skill sets, although you're losing that big one defensively for them and offensively in Adam Burkhart. But the trenches is where it's won and lost. Last year, Wilson lost. If you want to turn the tide and you want to get back in the win column against the Rams, you got to win in those spots. And I think this these seniors, because remember, all 5 seniors on the offensive, or all 5 guys on the offensive line are seniors, and depending on the alignment they use, and I'd expect them to use the same front 4 they did last year, they're all seniors as well. This is their time to shine. So time to step up.
There's also been a singular play in a couple of these games, the last few times we've played, where Central Dauphin will lure you up, throw one over the top.
You cannot get caught sleeping.
And they've hit it for big plays.
And the last few years it's been to the tight end.
Right. So, and I don't get me wrong. I know we were prepared for it.
You can't take a mental break on a play
because like I said, they know, like, if they see you starting to cheat, they're gonna see it because they're too good for that. You know, they're gonna notice it. Some teams won't pick up on it. We play some teams where when I'm up there in the booth or near the booth, and the other team only has like 1 or 2 guys up there, and they can't possibly catch or see everything, or, they're doing a million different things. That's not Central Dauphin, right? They're gonna catch those tendencies. They're gonna see those things, and that's something that in the bigger picture, just be ready every play. And that's hard to do. It's easy to say, hard to do. And it's even harder to do week 1, but the challenge is there. But you know what? Like we said with the Parkland thing, this is a game where you're going to be tested, you're going to be challenged, but it's a good kind of measurement to see where do you stand week 1 of the season. How's this going to go? Because it doesn't get any easier from there, but you can get a good idea of where you are when you play Central Dauphin week 1, because
they're a great measuring stick.
Right, exactly. And I honestly feel like they probably feel the same way, because
absolutely.
They know that outside of the mid-pen, Wilson's one of the top teams that they can face.
And South Central, Southeastern.
Right. And I think, for a while they've played, I don't know if they do this year, but I know they played Manheim Township in their non-league too the last few years.
Yeah, I believe they do this year too.
Yeah,
they do.
So, they go out and they test themselves like Wilson does in their non-league schedule, and you like to see.
They also play Berks Catholic. Remember,
right? Yeah.
It's Wilson, Berks Catholic, Manheim Township are their first 3 games.
Yeah, so they don't shy away from it either. So anyway,
I mentioned,
be interesting to see.
I mentioned that a majority of their offensive line is back. They got 5 big bodies there that Wilson's going to have to counteract if they want to kind of hold the Rams offense in check. I think 3 of those 5 guys, and I'm not sure all of them are seniors, but I think 3 of the 5 have collegiate offers to play football at the FCS or Division II level. So, I mean, they're legit guys, and if they can give their skill positions time to get ready or to break a play, they're going to. And 2 of those guys are Bryce Toman, 6'5", 270 pounds, and Chad Layton, 6'2", 275. And, they're back for another year. That's the thing, the experience. And it's for both teams, because Wilson's got 3 guys back as well.
Right.
And they're playing with 4 guys who have seen significant varsity time.
You kind of mentioned it. There was, looking at last year, one team, couldn't get it going, and one team got it going, specifically in the second half. And, if Wilson wants to reverse that, they've got to be the team that minimizes mistakes, plays up to the level that we know they can, or that is expected of them. It's hard to say that we know they can because it's week 1, but
Right.
but we've seen a lot of these guys, and we talked about how much experience there is coming back in some of the key spots. Not every spot, but in a lot of the key spots. But yeah, the guys who have been there and been in this situation before need to lead the way. You talked about lead by example. They talked about lead by example. They need to lead by example and hold everything down, calm everybody's nerves. That wave of emotion of the first Friday night of the football season, all that stuff. Weather that storm, be ready to go, and then hopefully everybody kind of just fills in, and to quote our favorite coach, just do your job.
Do your job, yeah. Crazy to think about, but Wilson hasn't started the season with a victory since 2016. Now I know that
Again,
doesn't sound
love to turn
that
that
long
around.
ago. It doesn't sound too long ago, but going 2 years without winning the first game is tough. 2017 Wilson lost at Mifflin when that was still the first game. They got behind early, fought back. We thought that they were going to tie it and just couldn't finish it off. That was that was the tale of that 2017 team at the beginning of the season, was inability to finish some of the bigger games. But they came together and they got rolling a little bit.
Yeah.
And then last year, we talked about going to Central Dauphin and not really being in that game after the first quarter or so. They got beat up, they got thrown around, and there was some challenges, both physically and mental, that they had to overcome. And again, eventually Wilson got rolling, and I talked about it with Coach Wolber, that Harrisburg game. Man, I really would like to get rid of those first 6 or 8 minutes or whatever, where they scored 20 points, and see where we could have gone without those issues.
I feel like Coach Doms mentioned that in his interview, didn't he? About how just getting off the better starts.
Yeah, start fast.
Yep.
So
and whether we're talking about the game
or the
whether
season,
we're talking about the season.
Yep.
This Friday is the time to do that. So.
Yeah, well, I'm ready. How about you?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, so I don't think we have any other announcements. We kind of covered everything at the beginning. We thank you for tuning in for our Parkland Scrimmage recap and our Central Dauphin game preview. Real Bulldog football starts Friday night, 7 o'clock, Gurski Stadium.
Yeah, come on out.
And hopefully we'll see all of you there. And we'll be back next Sunday, August 25th, normal time, 8:30 in the evening, to recap the Central Dauphin game and preview the rivalry game with Governor Mifflin, which will be in Shillington this year.
Yep. Yeah. So, it'll be a little bit. We have, I think, week 1 and week 4 are home games, right?
Yep.
2 and 3 are away. So, last I saw, the weather's supposed to be beautiful on Friday. Come on out. It'll be great to have a great crowd.
Let's keep it
there
that way.
All that. It'll be a lot of fun.
Come out and support them. The players really do feed off of that energy. So come out, be loud, show up. Be polite, respectful, and courteous too. But come out and be loud and get the players behind you, because they will absolutely feed off of your energy.
Yeah, it just makes it more fun for everybody. Dude.
Absolutely. And the home slate, we said it before, the home slate this year is absolutely amazing.
Unbelievable.
Central Dauphin, Manheim Central, Manheim Township, Warwick, Lancaster, McCaskey. You've got big time programs, you've got traditional rivalries, you've got great stuff happening at Gurski this year. So I think that's about it. Anything else to add?
No.
All right. So for the Wilson football program, he's Justin Raffoff. I'm Joe Mays. And remember, go Bulldogs.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Bulldog Hour. Want more Wilson football? Follow the show on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and SoundCloud. Or visit www.bulldoghour.com. The Bulldog Hour is a featured program on jmnjrradio.com.